kicking things off right here in the top left side. It's our red Zerg player. Give it up for SortOf.
And in the bottom right, it's your blue Protoss player. My first time ever casting him, so I'm excited to see what he has up his sleeves. It's ForJumy.
Interesting logo right there. It is from the Berserker Esports. I believe SortOf is teamless right now, if I'm not mistaken. I believe. It's a bit of a...
I think that's correct.
Sorry?
I said I think that's correct.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tragic tale in a way, right? That all of the teams, I believe he was on some teams that, you know, some stuff didn't quite go as you wanted to. Sometimes in the world of esports, you know, it's not all sunshine and glory and video game fun. So yeah, I always have a bit of a weak point in my heart for those players, right, that go through that type of stuff. And I would like to see him do well because of these types of things. But then again, ForJumy here, I mean, you gotta give it to him as well, right? Wanting probably nothing more than just get a good couple of rounds here and potentially get himself in that top 4 of the group, get himself qualified for the next part of this tournament. We'll have to see. We'll have to see if he manages.
I mean, it's already, you know, he's already made it into the group stages, which is, I mean, such a big accomplishment in itself. In itself, you know, every player who makes it to the group stages of any DreamHack event, you can't really, you know, look down on them because they're already, you know, in the top 16 players of Europe or so, you know, top 32 probably, at least just for this event in their qualifying run, and so. I think, yeah, but making a great, you know, run here would be absolutely awesome for him. And as for SortOf, you know, he's always kind of been up and down. There are times when SortOf does look absolutely amazing, and then there, of course, are some times where he does just, you know, it's a lot of small mistakes that end up adding up, and he ends up kind of just, a game kind of slowly starts to spiral out of control for him. But as you said, you know, SortOf's one of those players where it is very impressive that he does all this while teamless. Because there are a lot of players, you know, who, some of them, they struggle a bit more to find the motivation to continue to play at a high level when they don't, like, have a team. And there are some players that play better without one. You know, for the longest time, Zest didn't have a team. And I think that's when he kind of, and something that he was very vocal about was his, they talked about it on GSL, his motivation issues, but recently, you know, he was picked up by DPG, and that helped out a lot. But SortOf's kind of always just been a lone wolf, and still manages to, you know, play at an extremely high level.
Yeah, traveling all over the world, always putting in the hours. He's been in Korea for a very long time. Just a player that you always have to keep an eye out on. Just never really quite as successful as you know, he probably would like to see it, but. That, I guess, is just something true for every single esports player ever. But, you know, for him, not that many great victories in the past just quite yet. Perhaps somebody that will still hit his stride, but we would love to see it, right? Another one of those bunny scenarios in a way. Nice little delay here on the third base, actually. Gets the probe, gets an adept as well before the infrastructure is put down to kind of give that extra padded armor for those adepts. Right, a little sneaky point where you can just sit in between.
And we have the Twilight Council as the follow-up, so it's not going to be any double Stargate play coming out from ForJumy, which we have kind of seen a lot of Protoss players been liking. And one thing I did want to kind of mention, I was looking at it earlier, and I noticed, you know, there's been a lot of Zergs today, and all of them have been 2-0s. So I'm kind of hoping that we do break that and get a 3-game series. I would love to have one that does go the distance. You know, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but we will see. We have, you know, an Oracle across the map right now with the Void Ray also just to clear up lanes on the Protoss side of the map. But SortOf prepared for all this, already has the roads worn down and preparing for that transition. Everything just looking very, very solid here for our Zerg player.
Yeah, I think SortOf one of the players that is less likely than some other Zergs to try and do a queen push or something like that. As far as I know him, right, as a player, he doesn't mind going into the long game. As I said, he likes the lurkers. Little bit of pressure here and there with some links. I mean, that is to be expected. You got to keep tabs on your opponent as well. Gets a bit of insight of what's going on, right? He sees the adept numbers, doesn't see any extra added in Void Race or anything like that. So he kind of has a clue, you know. Might already have an inkling, like, right, it doesn't seem like a two Void Ray type of deal. Or double Stargates.
Yeah. No, it looks completely standard from both players. We do have charge on the way for ForJumy, and mind you, he has also cut workers. So it is looking like this is going to be a pretty potent timing attack here with the sentries in the Warp Prism. I actually really like this. This is a build that if you manage to catch the Zerg out, if they don't see this coming, you can absolutely get a ton of damage done with it, because it is so many gateways that are now on the map. You have 9 warp gates that are ready, or that are gonna be ready to go. Zealots being warped in. We'll see if SortOf is ready. Has roaches on the way, but they're not quite out just yet.
Oh, this is coming in at a very awkward timing for SortOf. As you mentioned, those sentries moving their way along towards that ramp area. It's gonna be trouble. The Queen's not quite in time. The sentries look like they will be able to block this off. A massive warp in of Zealots in the main base. That's gonna be a lot of trouble. The initial Zealots do seem to be dwindling out a little bit, but that main base, that is the true problematic area right now. Nothing really that can push through. This Ravager's trying to be constructed so he can burst his way back up. But the Roach Warren, oh, the speed goes down.
And there's still more force fields. Finally, the Ravagers come out and they can start to try and fight this, but you're pulling drones on into it. The hold position, though, is actually beautiful here from SortOf. Just gets rid of so much surface area that the Zealots can try and fight with, and is going to be able to eventually clean up this force in the main. But ForJumy's still going. He's got a warp in now outside of the third base. The Void Ray that was trying to kill the morphing fourth has been pushed back, but more drones are going to go down. Finally, the main base is clear. But, I mean, still 10 drones are going down. More Zealots being warped in. They can eventually be picked up when they're done. And it's damage, but I don't know if it was enough. That kind of felt like an attack that needed to almost kill SortOf. Oh, and the warp prism goes down.
That's a rough one indeed. Yeah, I kind of agree with you, because now you're somewhat in the waters here as the Protoss player. You don't really have anything to fall back onto. You have the Robo, the Twilight, and the Stargate, but nothing really to accommodate that. Nothing to, I don't know, get Disruptors out or get something... Colossi, Storm, anything of that sort. Going for the Immortals for the time being, and we're seeing a double Spire being added in as a bit of a surprise here for SortOf. This would be interesting. I guess it's a pretty cool idea, because his opponent so far basically purely going Zealots. Again, I mean, look at this army composition, right? Sentries, Immortals, that a good swing in a Mutalisk transition. Do quite a bit here, but
I was gonna say I did feel like a mistake if the second Spire was canceled, but here comes the follow-up attack here from ForJumy. He's got 2 Immortals with it this time. More Warpins coming in. SortOf, you know, had to rebuild his work count. He's at 75 workers. It's a massive economy for SortOf. But the question is, do you have enough to hold and to, you know, stop this base from going down? I don't think so. I think SortOf just has to sack it. He has to wait for more units to be built. Try and wait for his Glial Reconstitution, if that is given time to finish, and just build more units. And again, as you said, those Mutalisks would be massive, but he just does not have the gas to build them right now.
He needed to spend all that money into those roaches here, get something out on the field in order not to die immediately, as he is desperately trying to hold on here. His third base is already gone. He does still have that fourth, but managing somewhat here, slightly. The Zealots are thinning out. Only 4 of them extra being warped in. The drones are being pulled. I think SortOf is doing it, man. I think he is. He's still with a 65 worker lead versus 44.
It really does feel like that hold just barely comes through. That the Immortals for the longest time were not supporting the Zealots. The Zealots were just fighting the Roaches by themselves, and, well, that doesn't really bode well, because the Roaches will deal with them over time. We have a single Mutalisk on the way, and I suppose will help chase off this Warp Prism. So fairly useful for that purpose, but other than that, ForJumy, what has he got? I mean, he's got 3 bases, and he did manage to kill the third of SortOf. Is still trying to get damage done with these Zealot run-bys, so he's sticking in this game. It's just being tenacious, and he's even going to try and focus down this hatchery. If he gets that, that's massive. I just don't know if there's enough damage. The roaches coming in. It's
wow.
23 HP.
Man, I thought those Biles were going to maybe do some friendly fire as well, perhaps. That was the risk. Well, he knows what he's doing, of course, and does slam it down, barely keeping it alive. Very clutch.
Goes in. The single Mutalist has... There's a single Phoenix that has been built to deal with it, but it's ForJumy going for a follow-up. He has 4 Immortals now. It's a decent army for him, but again, there's so much roaches. The Warp Prism goes down. I just don't know if he can fight this. There's no more anti-air. I mean, actually, the sentries might kill you.
Of course, sentries. It's the one time where you see sentries actually do something here with their firepower. They take out 2 Mutalists, then the Phoenix comes in, helps them out with the 3rd. This is still too many roaches. The economy for SortOf has just been rolling too properly for too long, and that's it. Game number 1 goes into SortOf's favor.
Yeah, I mean, it looked close there. I don't know how, but ForJumy made that close. Surprisingly, in a lot of places there, which I was not expecting from how far behind he was. But if he had managed to have been able to snipe that 4th base, I mean, that game might have looked completely different, because then you can just pull back. You can sit on your 3 bases, build more Immortals, and kind of play defensive from there. It's just unfortunate that he was not able to get it. Almost made that work. Tried his darndest, but sort of holds on. Takes game number 1, and we're going to be headed on to Blackburn for game number 2.
Blackburn, interesting map. Not one that a lot of people tend to pick. Sometimes one of those maps that kind of gets in the map pool, I feel like, because both of the players feel like, he'll probably veto it. Why should I? And then neither of them do, and then it's like, or I guess we are playing this then. It's an interesting map. It has the gold base, of course. Wondering if SortOf is going to be trying anything there. I'm not anticipating it, but again, if he does go for it, I wouldn't be completely caught by surprise, right? But we'll see. We'll see.
Absolutely. I mean, SortOf, this is a map that I've seen him play on before, and he looks very comfortable on it, especially in the late game. So I wouldn't be surprised if ForJumy does go for something a bit aggressive again. I mean, I liked that attack. I liked how he was managing the aggression and how he was committing to it. It looked very, very good, even from the failure of the first attack where he got the Roach Warren, but that was about it. So I'd be excited to see what he has up his sleeves. But for now, we're going to introduce the bottom left-hand player. He held on, he macroed up, and he built enough that he was able to slowly bleed out the units of the Protoss. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your red Zerg. His name is SortOf.
Of course, his opponents right here in the bottom right side. It's Protoss in the blue. ForJumy. Lovely Viking accompanying him. Your beard must be this long in case you want to join our esports team.
It's true, actually. I tried to join Berserker Esports at one point, and they looked at me and they said, your beard isn't good enough. I'm sorry.
You have no beard. Get out of here.
You're right. I did shave it. No, my beard's gone.
I hoped you wouldn't notice.
I had actually a piece of paper that I had taped on in the shape of a beard, hoping that would, over the camera that it would, look right. But
it's a very long turtleneck that goes up to the bottom of your nose. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
I promise you. Let's see. Nothing too interesting this game so far. But sorry, continue. What was your thoughts? And then we'll go into my thought.
Yeah. My thought was going to be one thing that I really love about players like ForJumy, as I would pronounce it, is that they have the kind of names. It's like the Joan situation where, no one knows how to pronounce it right until they tell you themselves. I just feel like his name is going to be one of those.
He told me himself, and I still don't know. It's terrible. To be fair, I didn't quite hear, and then I was too embarrassed to ask again. But yeah, I'm getting closer to it. Don't worry about it. I think it's more like zone for ForJumy. Yeah, it's just difficult, you know, because it's you don't know. It's just text on a bit of paper, and well, people have their own idea about the pronunciation. A lot of different areas would pronounce things differently, so it's hard. I think it's understandable as well, right? I wouldn't really get upset if my name got mispronounced.
It's
myself,
absolutely causing.
I don't know. That might just be me, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the thing about making a really catchy username, and you know, if you're gonna be doing anything professionally, is you gotta have a name that it's not easy to confuse. You know, you gotta easy to pronounce, perhaps. That's why you got players like you got Soul, Maru. All those names very easy to say, and that makes our job just that much easier when we're trying to say things very quickly.
Yeah, it's nice that all the Korean gamers really have those names as well, and then the English words in particular. They use the English words rather than Korean in general, except for Zone. He's the exception.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that there was for the longest time in Heart of the Swarm, you had the Protoss player named Billowy.
Oh, right, yeah.
Great Protoss player, but also just the softest of names that, that did not really represent his playstyle. I do believe he eventually did change his username, but yeah, I really do love the Korean usernames where they are just an English word that they liked, like bunny.
yeah, exactly. They just look it up in the dictionary and they're like, oh, this looks cool. Let's go with this. Fire hydrants. That's me from now on.
That's me in an alternate universe, actually. Fire hydrant. Little did you know. But with that being said, we have a pretty standard game up to this point. SortOf had to take the farther base as is natural, as is usually standard on a map with a short rush distance, and it looks like ForJumy playing this a bit more standard, actually. Did get a Stargate, but has only built a single Void Ray, and is then immediately going into his Robo facility with the third base. So this is, at this point, at least looks completely like a standard macro game, but of course, you never know with this guy, because that's what it looked like last game, and then he was like, actually, 4 more gateways, and I'm going to do a Zealot all in.
Yeah, he did at the Twilight Council before the Robo last game, so there's a bit of a mix-up here, but he's making it look very similar. I guess that's the power of that initial Void Ray, right? You just put the Zerg in the dark, you don't have those overlords around your base anymore. Good luck figuring out what I'm doing, buddy. You're gonna have to do scouting with Zerglings, and the Zerglings, well, they can't really enter your natural base as long as you're on top of your wall, right? It's just not gonna happen. So it's a lot more possibility for the Protoss to suddenly come out with, for example, that Zealot charge attack, right? Just from complete left field, surprise your Zerg opponent, and just take a quick victory that way. But yeah, this time around, as you were saying, a bit different. Going into the Robo Bay, as well, some more gateways.
So, I mean, it's possible that we do see Colossus. I feel like Protoss players, especially recently, have been favoring more so the Disruptor play out of this kind of an opening. But you just see Jimmy kind of scouting around, has the Oracle patrolling. I mean, only got a single kill with it and hasn't really been able to do too much else. Again, sort of very solid early games in both these games where he just has been able to take minimal damage and get into what he wants, has the Spire on the way. And it does look like it is actually going to be a Colossus for ForJumy.
Yeah, standards kind of strong units, right, that you can kind of make attack and forget about in a way. You do want to put it back when it's in trouble, of course, but pretty solid stuff. Getting a couple of sentries with this as well. Let's just see what the response of SortOf will be. The Spire that he's building does get scouted relatively early on by the Observer, so he started up some more Phoenix production right now as well.
Yeah. He's gonna just have that counter out for the Mutalisks before they even come, and this is a cool, I mean, it's a fun thing that Protoss can do to try and catch the Zerg out if they know that they are going to be going for Mutalisks, is actually building up a decent Phoenix count and not showing it until then. And I think, yeah, that's going to be the plan for ForJumy, where he hides the Phoenixes away, if Mutalisks do come out, he'll have that counter ready. And even if they don't, those Phoenix will be very useful, you know, later in the game when he wants to go and pick off Queens, especially when pushing, to stop them from using transfusions. And so I really don't mind him getting into this, as it's 2 Colossus at a time, Phoenix production, and Sentries. This is a very, I mean, it's a very technical army coming out from our Protoss player.
Yeah, sort of kind of going ham on the roaches at the moment, now making his Ravagers as well. He's only sticking around the 70 workers. I think we're going to see him try to do a bit of a push here, approaching the max supply mark. His +1 attack about to finish up, as well as the roach speed just finished up as well. And let's see, the sentries will require some pretty good force fields here, I would say, in order to keep his distance. Where are the Colossi? They are still in the main base right now. Perhaps ForJumy expecting more so the Mutalisk harassment or something like that to come along, spending a lot of money trying to prep for that. But all of a sudden, this ground attack coming in, as he is taking quite a beating. The sentries are now gone. Oh my, Titan, this is not looking good.
Manages to keep all the Colossus alive, though, and does have 4 of them. And I mean, hey, roaches are armored, but still, 4 Colossus will do a lot of damage, but this third base might just be forfeit. It's so much army coming out from the Zerg. The Colossus are going to come down the ramp. They do have Stalkers to support them, and finally Disruptors in production. But the Nexus is under fire. I don't know if there is enough health on these Colossus so that ForJumy can push. The issue, I mean, the roaches are just diving on in. The juggle packs are actually gorgeous, though, from our Protoss player. But again, it's just so many units from SortOf, and not really a good counter for ForJumy.
ForJumy, yeah, really struggling here to keep anything alive, really. He does have a Disruptor. That could be a big deal right now. Let's, never mind. It is, I think, picked up. Okay, it did get picked up. Bit of a panic move with those roaches coming in a lot closer. A little bit quicker than he may have wanted them to. SortOf now starting up the Corruptors. I think those, as soon as they arrive, like, what is that? And really to stop these roaches from entering the natural.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I really would have liked it if ForJumy had just produced non-stop Void Rays. I feel like it, even though they're not as good against the Mutalisks, they still are able to trade decently enough, and they also will protect better against Corruptors. He was just trying to read the Zerg, though, and right now, SortOf, I mean, has done almost critical damage. Has a 4th base up with that gold base expansion. Is finally going to be getting into some more upgrades, but SortOf's almost maxed out again. And ForJumy, well, it's about 100 supply down.
Yeah, he's definitely in trouble here. He's going to maneuver himself through the top side of the map. I guess he still has 60 army supply worth of very strong Protoss units. So maybe he's going to be able to make something work here. Perhaps a strike onto this gold base and then a quick recall before the chaos and madness of the Zerg army descends upon these Protoss boys over here. We'll see. Big split up already from that army.
I mean, it's such a big army from SortOf. I don't see any way
terrifying
that ForJumy is able to fight this. Oh, it's coming in. It's from 2 flanks at a time. Oh, this is going to be absolutely brutal. I don't know if you can micro your way out of this. It doesn't matter if your Disruptor shots are good. Because here come the Banelings. They're getting on top of everything. The roaches are collapsing through. SortOf crushes the army. GG. SortOf's going to take a 2-0